Today, I want to talk to you about something that has been on my mind a lot recently, and it's the shift from external to internal motivation being a really good fuel source for your pursuits. Because I think there's a point in life where you realize that the hardest part isn't necessarily achieving things, but it's about figuring out which things are actually yours to achieve. And that sounds simple, but I think it's one of the hardest questions we can ask ourselves. What do we go pursue? And why it's important is if we don't stop to ask ourselves and really sit with ourselves and think about what trajectory we want our life to follow, there is going to be this quote prescribed life that unfolds. And a lot of it is born out of comfort because we are wired for comfortable situations. But true meaningful experiences and really cool experiences are not born out of comfort. I've talked about this before, how it's natural to want to go to the same places. Even I do this. I have the desire to go to the same restaurants and go to the same places because I know the risk is bought down when we know something is going to make us happy enough. There's a risk we take when we go outside of that shell, when we go outside of our comfort zone, whether that's something tiny like going to a different restaurant but discovering something new, or if that's undertaking a huge new pursuit in your life. What I find is that the happiest moments in my life some of the happiest moments have resulted when I have thought critically of, oh, what do I think would be really fulfilling and really cool? Just I would be really proud of myself to be able to say that I've done for myself. And the moments of happiness come as a result of getting outside of the norm of day-to-day life. And the thing is also, if we don't think about this for ourselves, we can absorb what society's metrics, and I don't mean be here like society is the root of all evil and everything. Like, no, like it's just natural. Whatever culture you grow up in, there's gonna be certain norms and certain ways that we move up in the society, like quote, we move up in the society, like more money and having titles at work, and like, do we even need to buy a house? Why is the rhetoric that you grow up and you buy a house? Like questioning some of those things. Having a certain relationship, like, do you need to be in a committed relationship, or what if you have just a lot of community around you and you don't have like that one partner that brings you happiness and fulfillment, but what if it's rather you live in more like a community style? You know, it's about asking for yourself what's gonna, thinking critically instead of just following a herd mentality of what is really right for you, or a certain lifestyle. What do you want your day-to-day life to look like? Do you want a commute? Do you want to be able to walk? Like just really thinking critically about what are you out here to pursue? What is actually yours to pursue versus what is imposed on you by society as a whole, and then also maybe the more close relationships in your life, and what could they be imposing on you that is actually not in tune with you. You got to think about, like, wait, is this something I actually desire, or is this something I have been taught to desire? And where things get complicated is when you actually do achieve something. It's funny because the outside world starts demanding more from you. You accomplish something and suddenly the goalpost moves. Like, you run the race and then people ask, when's the next one? When's the next farthest one? You finish one degree and then people ask about the next. You get a job and then suddenly people are thinking about the promotion. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And actually sometimes it's really cool that people do expect things from you. There's the saying, ooh, like, pressure is a privilege. It's along those lines. It's cool when other people can see that potential in you, even before sometimes you see it in yourself. But you have to be careful, because if you let the outside world move your ego's goalpost, you can spend your entire life chasing something that you actually never wanted. And you can become addicted to proving yourself to those other people instead of actually living for yourself. And there's this difference between ambition and attachment. I was just talking about this with Lolita, and this is what I wanted to tell you, Lolita, is ambition says, I wonder what I'm capable of. Attachment says, I need to do this thing to prove I'm enough. I'm enough to myself, I'm enough to others, I'm enough in some way. And those are two completely different places to operate from when it comes to going after pursuits. And I'll say it again, I think it's important. Ambition, the way I see it, ambition is, I wonder if I can do this thing. I wonder if I can accomplish it. And attachment is, I need to do this thing to prove I'm enough. And one practical thing I have found that has helped me with this, because I was definitely in the attachment camp for a lot of things. I mean, my whole undergrad degree, I think, was just attachment to proving to my parents that I could handle it enough, and proving it to myself that I was smart enough to get through it. I mean, I think that was all attachment, and only after did I start to do things that were more self-driven, internally driven, because I had felt like I had put that to rest. I had done, quote, enough, quote, enough to satisfy my parents. And then I grew up a little bit, and only then, and retrospectively, did I realize what I was doing. There was no way I was conscious of this. And my parents were supportive of anything I wanted to do. This was all internally imposed, their thoughts on this. And only after, even 2-3 years after I started working, did I start to think, okay, I've done, I think, everything I'm supposed to do, in terms of I got my degree and I got my job and I'm on my way to being financially stable. Now, what are my interests? What are my intellectual interests, outside of just what I did in school? And so one practical thing I have found to help me with all of this is to keep certain goals more private. And it's not because I don't value other people's opinions, and I actually value them a lot, probably too much sometimes, to be candid with you. And that's exactly why I have learned to do this, and it has served me in a positive way. So maybe this can be, a pearl of wisdom for you. And it's because when I share an idea too early, there's this weird thing that happens when I get a little hit of dopamine before I've actually even done anything. You tell someone your plan, they get excited, they tell you how amazing it is, and suddenly you've received some of the emotional reward before ever putting in the work. But beyond that, it gives the opportunity of outside opinions to influence something that hasn't even fully formed and fully sat and fully become a part of you yet. And there's that beautiful moment when you have this idea of either a thing to do or a lifestyle change to make, and there's this beautiful moment where nobody else knows about it but you, and holding on to that feeling and just sitting with it for yourself. Like, let it exist quietly, and also in that moment you're also able to ask yourself, do I actually want this? Would I still do this if nobody knew that I was doing this? It's, would I still pursue this if there was no recognition attached? Because that's where you find out whether something is actually coming from you. And that leads into something I think is incredibly important, and the whole inspiration for the title of this episode is living a life that is deeply, deeply your own. And I think we underestimate the value sometimes of being alone with ourselves. And trust me, I know it feels so good to be around other people, especially really close, good relationships. They fill us up in a certain way. And it's easy to get swept up in other people. And it's easy when we talk about going after goals, it's really easy to feel good because somebody else is excited for you. It's easy to become captivated by your own pursuits, your accomplishments, and wrap this up in your identity. But I have found that you need moments when you're bored. You need moments when there's no stimulation, when you're not consuming information, when you're not asking somebody else what they think about what you're doing. Because only in that quiet are you actually able to hear yourself. And only in that quiet can you actually listen to your internal voice. And that's why I also think pursuit matters so much. And because the point is not that you're currently inadequate, in that one day after enough achievements you'll finally become enough in some way. No, that's the trap, and that's where people could misconstrue going after things. No, the point is that you are already enough, and because you're already enough, you're able to explore what you're capable of. Because humans have this incredible drive to seek. We have these dopamine systems in our brain that keep us, the dopamine system actually dips below the baseline after we achieve something. Why? Because it wants us to keep going out and searching for food, keep searching for a mate. And it's this same drive that pushed us to seek shelter and food and water and community. But in this modern world, that drive can become disconnected from meaning, and we start chasing things just because we're told that they matter. But the whole point of this, the whole point of pursuit is not the finish line. It's that finish line moment of crossing the 50-mile finish line is great. But you know what I remember? I remember all the training sessions I went to, all the people I interacted with as a result, all the little videos I made along the way, the actual race itself. Like, the finish line was 2 seconds when I crossed it. But that's what people see. That's what people see, right? But it's really the moments along the way, and honestly just the person I became because of that. Like, being I just learned about putting myself out emotional, like uh being vulnerable online about the food and the body image struggles. Like, I learned so much about myself. That's what I remember about the 50 miles. And 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 it's funny because it does end up being a line on your resume. Like, so many things end up being a line on your resume, but a life well lived isn't just measured by these things that you can list out and these achievements, but it's measured by how much fulfillment and how much meaning you find with these things along the journey. And also tying back into the 50 miler, as almost immediately, as soon as I finished the 50 miles and the half Ironman, people started asking, so when's the 100 miler? So when's the full Ironman? And what's interesting is that I was actually thinking about those things. You can ask the people that are really close to me. I was already talking about those possibilities right after finishing. I was like, oh man, like, I low-key wish that this was a full. But I noticed something very interesting in myself, that as soon as it came from somebody else, it felt different. And it almost created this resistance because suddenly it wasn't my idea anymore. And I reflected on it, and it's because my soul hadn't arrived to that decision yet. And if I had immediately committed to those things, it would have been less because I truly wanted them and more because somebody else planted this seed of expectation in me. And that's such a subtle difference that I'm communicating here. And I think this can also happen when we ask other people too much about what we should do. And it's hard because sometimes those opinions come from people we really respect and people who have achieved the things that we think would be cool to achieve. And I've said it before, why would we take advice from somebody who hasn't accomplished the things that we're trying to accomplish? But there's another layer to that. Even if somebody has everything that you desire and you aspire to have, their path is still their path. They can provide wisdom and perspective, but they can't tell you what your soul is actually trying to pursue. Only you can know that. Only you can know that by sitting in the silence. So when you finish something big, or when you're thinking about the next thing to pursue, I encourage you, don't immediately rush into the next thing, especially if it's imposed by something outside yourself. Sit with it. Let the dust settle. resist the urge. And when you do think of something, resist this urge to immediately announce your next goal. Because sometimes when you start talking about all the possibilities, you like kick up so much dust in your own mind that you can't actually see clearly why you're doing this. And a lot of the times, the answer of what we're here to truly pursue comes from sitting in silence and sitting with yourself. And when you do start to think about your next pursuit, something I've noticed is with every single challenge I've ever taken on, there's always fear. Every single time. Because it's always the first time you're going to do something. And pay attention to what this fear is telling you, because it's going to tell you a lot about how you see this potential pursuit. Because there's a difference between I'm scared I won't physically be able to do this, I'm scared I won't know how to do this, I'm scared I'll fail. Those are kind of standard normal fears. But when the fear comes from, what if I disappoint somebody else? What if somebody thinks less of me because I don't do this? What if I don't live up to this identity that somebody has for me? Like somebody sees me as this endurance athlete, and if I don't do this, they're no longer going to see me in this way. That's worth examining, because that's different from the fear of, oh, I don't know if I can run this race. Like, I don't know if physically my body can handle this. That's different than, oh, what is somebody going to think if I don't do this? Because your personal pursuit should ultimately be yours and not a performance for everybody else. And living a life that's truly your own also means paying attention to what I call the Kool-Aid that you drink. We can all drink certain types of Kool-Aid. And there's a lot of content out there. Because we're all influenced. And even if we don't listen to a lot of content, we're just influenced by society, culture, our family, our friends. And then media is a huge one. Like even this podcast. Like right now, you're drinking my Kool-Aid. Like you don't have to accept my philosophy. Like, like I'm here to share ideas that I think have really brought me moments of happiness in my life. But this is my Kool-Aid. This is my philosophy. And you got to think about for yourself what's right for you. And that's why I always welcome other people's perspectives, like on anything I say. Feel like, I see this differently. And then you have a different way of approaching life. I love that. I love those conversations. So you got to be careful. And trust me, the reason I'm able to say all this is because I have blindly followed other people's philosophies too. And when I've been able to step back, I step back and I glean the things, okay, I want to keep this part, but other things I'm like, I think I'm a little different in this way. And I'm just sharing, on here, I'm sharing the things that have worked for me up until this point in my life. And at 26 years old, what I have found is that having a goal and aligning my life around that goal gives me a lot of fulfillment. But I've also learned that, like I said before, the goal itself is rarely like the actual ultimate thing, or like achieving the goal is rarely the thing that makes me happy. It's everything that happens along the way. Like I'm happy that I got my engineering degree in undergrad, but it was really the grind and getting through that I am most proud of. So I hope as you continue pursuing whatever it is that you're pursuing, I want to leave you with, and I hope that you remember that the goal of pursuing is not to become someone who's worthy. The goal is to explore who you already are. The goal isn't to prove yourself, it's to experience yourself. And the most meaningful pursuits are the ones that come from a place where you're running towards discovering what you are actually capable of in this world. That's what I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening, and I will surely see you on the next one. Bye!